Part 22. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 220. The sound of the text message was replaced by the preset alarm clock. Ling reached out to turn it off when the PDA rang for the first time. She got up earlier than Way 11, so the alarm clock was only set for her. After moving out of the caretaker's cabin, I had to make breakfast by myself. She would pull Way 11 out of the warm quilt after breakfast was ready. Now, Ling was sitting sleepily on the edge of the bed, the PDA's reminder light flashing intermittently. She swiped the screen and found the location of the new text message. It must have been sent by Ika in the middle of the night, she thought, and opened the text message. In fact, this is not the case. This text message came from an unknown address. If you want to know how to restore Miss Lululo's memory, please come here alone within 20 minutes. Just a few lines of words made Ling suddenly lose all sleepiness. At the end of the text message, there was a coordinate attached, which was located in the forest surrounding Shimizuki Academy and outside the protection range of the Great Barrier. This was a trap, you knew it without even thinking about it, but Ling couldn't ignore its message. The other party should know the reason for Lululo's amnesia. This is the problem that everyone is helpless about. Why did you find yourself? Ling looked at the PDA Way 11 put on the table. She did not receive the same text message. The only reason I can think of is my family background. In this case, Ika may also be the target. Ling hesitated whether to contact him. His contact address was already opened on the screen, but Ling didn't press send for a long time. The text message required that he should arrive at the location specified by the coordinates within 20 minutes, but 5 minutes had already passed. It should be no problem. As if telling it to herself, Ling recited it silently several times in her heart. After waking up Way 11 in advance, Ling did not tell her the content and location mentioned in the text message, but just asked her to meet Ika and Lululo first. If everyone knew about that place, they would definitely follow it regardless of the danger. Ling came to the edge of the Great Barrier of Shiyu Academy alone. Even in practical classes, students rarely go close to such a place. As long as they take another step, they will leave the protective scope of Shimizuki Academy. Ling took out her PDA again, and there were only a few minutes left before the designated time. Even if it was too late to ask Ika for help now, Ling found an excuse to give up relying on him. In spring, the surrounding forests are particularly fresh in the morning, and the clear air filled with the fragrance of various flowers is refreshing. She took a deep breath and felt that the tension in her heart suddenly eased a lot. The branches and leaves of the big trees only become lush in summer. Now they can't block the light above their heads with their thick green leaves, so the surroundings don't look dim. If you didn't come here under that premise, you would definitely enjoy it very much. Ling thought so and moved to the target location according to the PDA's map guidance. There is no big barrier here to drive away monsters, so Ling always unfolds his magic equipment in order to deal with dangers that may arise at any time. This was the first time she came to such a deep place in the outer forest. There were faint sounds of insects all around, and they would disappear when Ling got closer. This can probably be used to determine whether there are any lurking monsters around. Is it really possible to restore Lululo's memory? Ling repeatedly considered the reasons in the text message that forced her to act. This was the issue that everyone was most concerned about now. Ling's Iron is no exception. She hopes that the current Lululo can immediately return to the original Lululo. But this hope seems to be mixed with some unspeakable reasons. Even if Lululo regains her memory, as she said, her feelings for Ika will not change. Ling and Way 11 had already seen Lululo's intentions, but when everyone talked about him, they would intentionally or unintentionally avoid such topics. Ling pushed aside the bushes that had grown to half a person's height, and the scenery in front of him became empty. Spring grass spreads new green on the land, and the unique mist in the morning creates a hazy beauty. This piece of grass is the place designated by the other party. Ling came to the center of the grass. There were no trees around, and the view was very wide. There were no other people around, but Ling could tell there were people around. The other party did not deliberately hide his aura. I came alone as you requested. You should tell me what you know next, right? There was a rustling sound of stepping on grass blades from behind. Please don't move, let's just say this. Judging from the voice, the other party seemed to be a girl about the same age as herself, so the information could only be obtained. She seemed to not want Ling to see her face. This was indeed the first time she heard such a voice. No matter what, I can only do it according to her request now, because I need to get information from her. Do you know how to restore Luoluo's memory? I'm sorry, that one was a lie to you. Ling had already guessed that this was one of the possibilities of the ending. Are you just using that term to single me out? Yes, I must apologize to you and Miss Luoluo. When she said this, Ling immediately understood the meaning of her words. In other words, it was you who caused Luoluo to lose his memory, and now you are going to do the same thing to me, right? She knew her back was now being watched, and turning around would signal the end of the conversation. No, I don't know the reason for Miss Luoluo's amnesia, and this is not the result I hope to get, you wouldn't believe it. You said this was not the result you hoped for, so what was the original purpose? The girl behind her fell into silence, seemingly not planning to tell Ling. The light flame sword in the body reacts to the flow of magic behind him. This is the resonance between the magic costume and the magic costume. I have another question, are you someone sent by August? As a user of magic equipment, the first person Ling thought of was August. I don't belong to any organization. The girl didn't seem to know where August was. Ling has finished asking her questions, and is mentally prepared for what's coming next. She threw the magic tool behind her back. The other party has already stated that it will take action against him, and he cannot show mercy at this time. But this attack was bound to fail. As soon as Ling grasped the hilt of the light flame sword, a hurricane of magical power rolled up in the ground. In just a second, the invisible sharp arrow penetrated the hurricane, leaving a warm and moist feeling on Ling's flank. When she felt the pain, her body fell to the ground weakly. Ling's vision became blurry, which was the effect of blood loss. She couldn't think about the reason for her blurred vision, and her fingers involuntarily fumbled for the PDA in the pocket of her uniform. But his fingertips couldn't use any strength, and the PDA fell into the grass beside him. Someone walked up to her, and her blurred vision could not clearly see the other person's appearance. All she knew was that she bent down and picked up the PDA she had dropped. There is still Ika's contact address on the screen. Just in case, Ling has always set it so that he can be contacted at any time. The girl operated her PDA for a while, then put it back to her side, and her footsteps gradually moved away. Ling can't make a sound, and now she will fall asleep if she closes her eyes. After waking up, you may have amnesia like Luoluo, or you may never wake up again. Only when she can't ask for help, Ling will hope to ask Ika and them for help. This was probably the price he paid for his willfulness. Ling closed her eyes in resignation. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 221. Ling's memories ended here, but she omitted her own voice when telling it. As a result, until the end, I still didn't know the identity of that person. The girl never showed up, leaving only her voice to Ling. One thing she didn't lie about was that she was not planning to make Luoluo lose his memory. If this was her purpose, she should be in the same state as Luoluo now. And she also apologized to us for this kind of thing. Do you feel like you are forced to do this? Ika would not forgive her just because she was apologized to. Regardless of whether she was forced to do so, the person who did this was indeed her. I'll stop here first, and then answer the question Xiao 11 just raised. Ling knew that Ika couldn't accept it at once, and needed to give him time to think. After I woke up, I suddenly knew a lot of things that I didn't know before. What I know, I think this should be the memory of the light flame sword. Does the light flame sword also have memories? Wei 11 had doubts about Ling's statement. I don't know if this is the right way to describe it. These things have some connection with the Qin's family and the Heinz family, so I'm wondering if this is affected by the light flame sword. Say it in a way we can all understand. He immediately motioned for Ling to continue speaking. Ika didn't interrupt. He seemed to have other things on his mind. Even if the bloodline is very excellent, there is no guarantee that future generations will inherit this ability. Although the magic equipment itself has a certain amount of magic power storage, it is far from enough to achieve the level of cross-border war. Therefore, the Qin's family created with this technology, magic power pathways are used to realize the sharing of magic power. This kind of magic power passage can only be generated between direct relatives of the Qin's family, and those two people must, how should I say, be in harmony with each other? That's probably what it means. Specifically, please refer to this person for the case. Ling seemed to be waiting for Ika to complain, but he didn't refute as usual, and Ling frowned dissatisfied. Originally there was a special ritual to open this magic pathway, but the flow of magic in Luoluo's body was tampered with. Is that really a seal? I have never felt anything different in Luoluo's body. If it is a seal, I should be able to find it. Don't underestimate the Qin's family. Their seal is set up to prevent them from being discovered. In short, if no special circumstances occur, she will remain sealed. Ling looked at her with some embarrassment. Luoluo's direction, I made a lot of noise when I woke up, and the turbulence caused by magic happened to destroy the seal. By the way, Ika, I also have something to ask you. Hello. Ling flicked Ika's forehead before he reacted. How? Ika looked as if he had just woken up from a dream. I don't know how much he had listened to what he just said. I just wanted to ask if your body feels different than usual. I do feel like this. How did you know? I just said so much. How much did you listen to it? As expected, Ling was angry again. Sorry, I feel like I'm not myself right now. Ika touched her head in confusion. How should I put it? It's a bit fulfilling, but also a bit light. Yes, it's okay to feel this way. Now that Luoluo's magic power is shared with you, simply speaking, two people become one. The magic path between you plays this role and will accompany you to one's life. Then we have to be together for the rest of our lives. Wei 11 suddenly panicked. Ling and Shun both looked over and immediately blushed and lowered their heads. Is that so? Now I am experiencing a feeling I have never experienced before. What is this feeling? This is what Ika has been thinking about now. It is too ethereal and cannot capture reality at all. Moreover, from the time Luoluo fell asleep, he had an impulse that he could not suppress but must suppress. He has obviously touched Luoluo's body countless times, but tonight the urge is particularly strong. By the way, I haven't mentioned another function of the magic pathway. Ling has not forgotten it at all. She seems to be preparing to say it after Ika has been troubled for so long. All the strong thoughts of the two of you will be felt by each other, such as love for someone, and the like. What is this? Ika was finally stimulated by Ling's words for the first time, and Shun smiled evilly and patted his shoulder. Friend, now you have become a real handkeeper. Lolo is my sister, not my wife. Well, this kind of thing is fine no matter what. It's not a big problem now anyway. Just wait until Luoluo wakes up and explain it to her. Ika stood up and glanced into the room. Everyone, please go back and rest first, I will take care of her. No. Brother Ika just experienced that kind of thing and must go to rest. Wei 11's voice revealed deep tiredness, but she still couldn't leave the two people at the center of the incident alone. Xiao 11 is right. Shanya stood up and ordered Ika to be kicked out. Now if you continue to stay up late, we will have to take care of 2 people tomorrow. Don't you think it's not enough trouble? Ika didn't reply, and a smell of gunpowder gradually spread between the two. Brother Shun. Ling stopped Shun from continuing. She understood that this was Shun's good intention, but Ika's mind was in chaos now, and it was really inappropriate to say such radical words suddenly. But Ika wasn't angry, he just punched Shun hard in the chest. Thank you, Brother Shun. With a passing word, Ika left the room. It hurts, bastard. Shun's voice was mixed with some pain, but he laughed. Don't this guy know that his power has become stronger? He has become stronger this year. Ling stood behind Shun, but I think he just hit hard on purpose. When he gets some rest, I'll beat him up. Just leave Brother Ika alone, does it really not matter? Seeing that Ika had no energy, Wei 11 hesitated and wanted to catch up with him immediately. It doesn't matter, he just can't accept Luoluo's feelings. Ling could understand his current inner struggle. Just as Ling said, Ika is not sleepy at all now. The clothes soaked with sweat had dried completely during this period of time. He fell directly on the bed without taking a shower or changing clothes. Although there was a dark ceiling above his head, and it was pitch black even when he closed his eyes, her figure appeared in his mind. Lolo. Ika covered her eyes with her arms. After the magic pathway was connected, he felt Luoluo's deeply buried thoughts and feelings for himself from the bottom of his heart. In fact, she already knew before that, Luoluo confessed to herself, and then he accepted her feelings. Have you really accepted it? Ika suddenly had doubts. No, it's not acceptance, it's just that he knows that she has such feelings for him, and that his sister has feelings for his brother that are above that. Just know it. When he faced Luoluo's feelings in his heart, Ika realized how superficial his understanding was when he answered Luoluo, not even 1/10,000th of Luoluo's. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 222. Luoluo thought that everything that happened last night was a dream, but when she opened her eyes and saw Wei 11 sleeping next to her, Shun holding her hands and hanging her head on the chair beside the bed and snoring, she knew that it was not a dream. Last night, she didn't stay in Ling's room as usual. The fatigue accumulated over a long period of time made her lie on the bed, and her consciousness sank into darkness. When you wake up, you will forget today's troubles and welcome tomorrow with full energy. But she didn't forget. Instead, she remembered everything. Luoluo sat up and looked at his hands blankly. Wei 11 and Shun were not awakened by the sound she made sitting up. They were already exhausted last night. Not only did he remember it, but he also gained more feelings that were not his own. Why? Tears fell from the corners of her eyes, and the pajamas on her chest were tightly clenched into a ball. It hurts. This is not my own feeling. Although I have experienced this kind of pain, it is far from this level. What happened to me? Suddenly there was a sound of a chair moving slightly beside the bed, and Shun, who was snoring, seemed to wake up. Luoluo wanted to pretend to be sleeping immediately, but his body did not move according to his wishes. Luoluo. Shun narrowed his eyes, and his eyes widened immediately when he saw Luoluo sitting up on the bed. Luoluo. Are you okay? He hurriedly stood up from the chair and walked to the bed, carefully looking at Luoluo's body. Brother Shun, Shun. Luoluo immediately pulled the quilt to cover his body. Even if he was a childhood sweetheart, Luoluo couldn't allow him to see her just waking up. Ah, I'm sorry. Shinya realized that there was something wrong with the way he cared. He took a few steps back and left the bed. Are you feeling uncomfortable in any way? Faced with this question, Luoluo hesitated for 2 seconds, then smiled and shook his head. There's nothing particularly uncomfortable. Thank you, Brother Shun, for causing you trouble last night. Do you still remember what happened at that time? Well, Orchid Heart seems to be out of control. Lugo fumbled for the sky blue necklace around her neck, but there was only the touch of skin in her hands. Aika took that necklace back to her room. Last night, in order to avoid the same situation happening again, Aika temporarily kept this dangerous item for Lolo. It would be dangerous to be around my brother. That's the kind of person he is, and you know it? Lugo nodded slightly, his face became a little more painful. Fortunately, the curtains in this room were closed, so Shun wouldn't notice Lugo's depression in the darkness. The situation last night didn't really cause trouble, but it did scare us. It would have been big news if Ling woke up. Is Sister Ling awake yet? Lugo leaned toward Shun anxiously, she couldn't ignore the sentence. Her body pulled the quilt, and Wei 11, who was sleeping on the same bed, was inevitably woken up by her. Seeing Lugo's sudden excitement, Shun scratched his head in confusion. He simply relayed Ling's explanation last night to Lugo appropriately. Don't let her know that Aika and her heart are connected, and if she doesn't notice, try not to draw her attention. It's not that it's a bad thing for two people to connect with each other, but there's no guarantee that Lugo won't be confused after knowing the facts. It is enough for those who know about this matter to have Aika. As long as he can control his mentality, Lugo will not be greatly affected. This was a decision made by Wei 11 and Shun, and Ling also agreed to keep Lugo a secret at that time. Shun secretly looked at Lugo's face again. She didn't seem to be uncomfortable because she was connected to Aika, and Shun felt a little relieved. Really, don't you feel anything strange? Wei 11 tried to confirm again. She had already roughly understood the current situation when Shun was explaining to Lugo. Well, it's totally fine. Lugo smiled, making people believe her answer. Lugo and Ling's rooms were on the left and right of Aika. After Shun and Wei 11 left their rooms, Lugo got out of bed and walked quietly to the wall that separated the two rooms. She stretched out her hand and made a motion to knock on the door, but her wrist was frozen in mid-air, unable to knock on the wall anyway. Brother, am I the one who makes you suffer so much? Her memory was restored, and both the memories before and after the amnesia were completely preserved in her mind. This was the first action Lugo made after moving here after losing his memory. Why? She knelt on the ground as if giving up, resting her hands on the wall, her long sky blue hair hanging down weakly. Tears welled up uncontrollably, soaking his sleeves and dripping on the wooden floor, leaving dark marks. The feelings I have endured for several years, no matter how uncomfortable I am, are all buried in my heart. That night, taking advantage of Aika's inability to resist her tenderness and forcing him to kiss her, all this became an indelible fact. The relationship between the two people can never go back to the original time, and all this is conveyed to Aika through her heart. The choke sobs finally could no longer be suppressed, and Lugo chose to give up, crying as if she wanted to spit out all the sadness in her heart. After crying, Lugo sat alone by the bed. The curtains were still open and the room was still dark. How long has it been? Her hands were hanging on the soft sheets. Although the PDA was within reach, she didn't have the strength to lift her arms. Although Shun and Wei 11 didn't say anything, Lugo had already discovered that the feelings that didn't belong to him belonged to Aika. I don't know since when, I can no longer feel the feelings belonging to Aika in my heart, and I have become alone again. There was a knock on the door, and it lasted for a long time, but Lugo didn't notice it at all. When a ray of light illuminated the dim room from outside the door, Lugo raised his red eyes. When Wei 11 and Shun left the room, Lugo did not lock the door, so it could be opened from the outside. The person he wanted to avoid the most now pushed open the closed door. Elder brother. She opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say to him next. Aika's figure was against the light, and Luoluo could not see his expression. She only knew that Aika was not looking at her now. That ray of light disappeared after Aika entered the room, replaced by the sound of the door lock ringing. He slowly walked to Luoluo's bed and stood in front of her. "Would it feel better if you cried?" This was the first thing Aika said after entering the room, and it was also the last thing Luoluo wanted to hear. If I could feel Aika's feelings at that time, then in contrast, I could only hide my feelings from him. Even if she pretends to be nonchalant, Aika will know that she has cried weakly. "Brother, I'm sorry." Apart from that, Luoluo couldn't think of anything else to say to him. Were those things really not done out of one's own willfulness? Luoluo couldn't lie. If he didn't have the above-mentioned feelings for his family, it would be absolutely impossible to do that kind of thing. Luoluo wanted to vent her anger in Aika's arms and let her tears take away all her worries. This was a privilege that had been hers since she was a child. But now, she felt afraid even touching Aika's body. "This privilege no longer belongs to me, because it was me who betrayed the relationship with my family in the first place." Another tear fell on the thigh that could not be covered by the nightgown. The warm liquid made Luoluo understand his weakness. "I am no longer qualified." She sobbed and twitched her nose, trying to stifle her cries. Without a place where tears could flow, Luoluo could only bear the weight of tears alone. Aika knelt down in front of her so that Luoluo's face could not escape her sight. "I can't hear your voice now, but I can't pretend that I didn't hear those words before." That was when Luoluo cried loudly. Her heart was filled with regret and self-blame. "Brother will definitely forgive me." Luoluo shook his head, shutting out Aika's concern. "I know that brother will definitely do this, and I also know that brother will use these words to comfort me, because I just took advantage of you." So. She was unable to finish her soliloquy as if venting her emotions. Aika suddenly stretched out his hand and pushed her down on the bed, shutting her mouth in this rough way. Lying on the bed, Luoluo looked at Aika with eyes trembling with tears. She instinctively wanted to hold up her body and escape. But Aika immediately grabbed both of her wrists and restrained them above her head. Luoluo's wrist was so slender that Aika could completely control it with one hand, rendering her completely unable to move. "Don't want." His hands were grabbed by Aika with brute force, and only his body could twist helplessly. She shook her head in disbelief, more alarmed than confused. Luoluo had never been treated so roughly by Aika, so this was his first experience. "If you think you are the one causing me pain, just be obedient now." The words Aika said in her ear made Luoluo's whole body stiffen, and she could not find the strength to continue struggling. Taking advantage of her moment of relaxation, Aika used her other free hand to turn Luoluo's face and force her to look at him. Luoluo couldn't turn his head, so he could only look away. But after meeting Aika's eyes once, Luoluo could no longer escape. Luoluo could feel Aika's inner struggle from his eyes. "Please stop doing this kind of thing. I'm going to do to you what you did to me, so you won't forgive me, right? I've never thought of such a thing." "Yeah, you never thought about it, so it's all my fault." After Aika finished speaking, she blocked Luoluo's mouth with her lips, so that she could no longer stop herself. Lolo struggled harder underneath her. She turned her head desperately, but Aika held her chin tightly. Aika was serious, so Luoluo knew what he would do to him next. Because as Aika said, this is a replay of that night, except that the positions of both parties have been reversed. This is the comfort that Luoluo has hoped to get from Aika for so many years, but at this moment, her heart is getting heavier and heavier in self-blame. The legs clamped by Aika weakly kicked the sheets, which was the only free part of her body. The door to the room was locked, and the light outside the window was blocked by curtains. In the dim room, only the overlapping gasps could be heard faintly. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 223. Liuyan and Professor Kokina returned home at noon. They just had a simple work report, but it was delayed from last night to today because of the cumbersome procedures of the Holy See. As soon as they entered the entrance hall, Ling happened to pass by the two of them. "Xiaoyan, Kokina. Where have you been?" She had just gotten up and came out of the bathroom, wiping her wet blonde hair with a towel. "You are, Lingba." Liuyan rubbed his eyes to make sure he didn't see any hallucinations. The name she just called herself seemed strange. Professor Kokina stood stiffly on the spot, and she thought she had seen an illusion. On the way back, the two were still discussing how to solve Ling's problem, hesitating whether they should send her to a medical facility with better conditions. "I didn't expect that this question would lose its meaning as soon as I entered the door. Well, thanks to you, I woke up last night." "Ah, This way, it should be fine." The unexpected development made both of them unprepared mentally, and their attitude towards Ling also seemed a bit unnatural. Shun, who was checking text messages in the hall, heard voices coming from the entrance and walked over. "Shun, why don't you tell me such an important thing right away?" Liuyan, who had put on indoor slippers, got angry at Shun with a dissatisfied look on her face. Shun, who happened to walk over, unfortunately became the target of her anger. "Because this matter is immediately followed by another matter. After all of them are dealt with, I really have no energy left. Another thing. It might be a long story. Where are the other three people?" Although Liuyan was a little confused about Shun's explanation, she looked around first. "Everyone should be resting in their rooms. What I want to say is about Ling and Luoluo. Is it really related to Luoluo? The two biggest problems in this mansion are these two people, and it is natural that they should be connected. Anyway, before they come down, let's understand the current situation." Professor Kokina had adapted to the atmosphere. She pushed Luyan's shoulders and sat down on the sofa in the hall. "Should I stay here too?" "Of course you have to stay, you are the person involved. It's something that can be summarized in just a few sentences." Being caught by Liuyan and unable to leave, Ling had no choice but to hang the towel around his neck and sit down between Shun and Liuyan face to face. Then, Ling's situation was re-explained by herself. She didn't know what happened to Luoluo after she woke up, and it was up to Shun to convey it. For Liuyan and Professor Kokina, these are not particularly difficult things to understand. As the time turned to noon, the sunlight shifted from its original direction and shone into the silent room through the gaps in the curtains. Luoluo turned his back to Ika and sat on the bed with his knees in his arms. They have been in this state for a while. During this time, Luoluo didn't say a word, and Ika couldn't bear to disturb her. He did indeed do what he said to her. Luoluo. When the first ray of light illuminated the room, Ika finally couldn't help but break the seemingly peaceful sleep. "Are you listening?" There was no response, but Ika felt her body move behind her. After the first sentence was spoken, the second sentence felt less difficult. Ika knew that she could hear her voice, so she continued talking on her own. "Sorry, you don't have to forgive me." Originally, Ika was mentally prepared not to be forgiven for doing such a thing to her. There is no doubt that there is Ika's selfish desire in this. Even if he doesn't say it out loud, Luoluo must be aware of it. In this way, his identity as an older brother must have come to an end. Ika put his hands on his knees and looked at his feet with his head lowered. After waiting for a long time, a small voice finally echoed from behind. Ika got the answer she wanted, but she was still resisting the result mentally. Ika blamed herself for her immaturity in her heart. When Luoluo burst into tears, Ika could clearly hear her inner voice. She could not forgive herself for crossing that forbidden line. Doing this unforgivable thing to Luoluo was originally to offset what she had done, so that she would not continue to blame herself. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the starting point of this idea. Ika did think so at first. But this kind of thinking is also mixed with one's own selfish desires, and as a result, it goes one step further unconsciously. Luoluo was able to be as quiet as he was now because both of them had been calm for a long time. That's good. After thinking about a lot of things, the final result cannot be changed. Aika's purpose was fundamentally achieved. What he did to her was even more excessive than what she did to herself. This way Luoluo has no reason to continue to think that she forced Aika to accept this twisted relationship. When she gave up resistance that night and let Luoluo play around, Aika had already anticipated such an ending. So to be honest, at that time, he was even a little afraid of Luoluo regaining his memory. What is supposed to come will always come, and this is the retribution for letting yourself indulge in dirty desires. Aika exerted force on her limp legs and stood up from the bed while shaking her body. Where should I go next? Aika doesn't know yet. One way is to hide in the room and hide until everyone returns to Shimizuki Academy and then come out. It simply can't be done. After knowing that Luoluo made it clear that he would not forgive himself, his brain could no longer think about unnecessary things. In short, disappear from here first, disappear from Luoluo's side first. Even with his back to her, unable to see her expression, hear her voice, or feel her heart, Aika could understand her mood. At this moment, Aika thinks so. However, he didn't even take the first step, and he was destined to be unable to leave here. Brother, before you get my forgiveness. His body was restrained in place by the warm arms, you will not be allowed to leave my side. Luoluo rested his forehead on Aika's back, and tightened his arms around her waist, just like Aika had restrained her wrists. My brother left a color on my body that will never fade away in my life, so I will never forgive him in my life, can you understand this? Aika suddenly had a lump in his throat. He didn't expect that he was so wrong. Even though he treated her so roughly, and even abandoned his feelings and kept asking for her, in the end he got such care. I should have thought of it a long time ago, before the relationship between the two changed, this kind of natural thing would have been thought of right away. Luoluo said that she was taking advantage of her tenderness. And he had already done the same thing as her, so why wasn't he waiting for her redemption deep in his heart? A hot and humid feeling spread across the back. Aika didn't want to know how many tears Luoluo had shed today. Feeling Luoluo's temperature and Luoluo's presence, no matter how hard she tried, she could not make Aika feel pain, but this touch could completely fill the hole in her heart. A small fire was lit in the heart that was already as dead as ashes. He didn't turn around and hug the little body behind him. She must not have wanted to see her face now, so she kept her head buried in her body. That's it, don't forgive me for the rest of your life. Then, I spend my whole life begging for your forgiveness. Aika overlapped her palm with the little hand holding her. Time can dilute everything, so Aika wants the current time to flow quietly for a while. When the two of them returned downstairs from the room, everyone was already waiting for them. No one complained about the two of them coming so late. Everyone was only concerned about Luoluo's physical condition. Sorry for making everyone worried. Luoluo bowed sincerely to everyone, and Aika also bent down with her. I also want to thank everyone for doing so much for Ling and Luoluo. You shouldn't be the one to say this, right? Ling, who had been sitting, immediately stood up from his seat. If you want to say thank you, I should be the one to say thank you. But I also have a responsibility. It has nothing to do with you at all, right? Ling has already thanked you many times just now. Liuyan looked at the two people who were deadlocked over an inexplicable issue and smiled bitterly. Luoluo, has your memory been restored? Luoluo has not yet made a clear statement on this issue, it is just speculation by the three people taking care of her. The stiffness in her attitude when she lost her memory was no longer noticeable. Well, I remembered everything. I have been causing trouble to everyone during this period. Sister Ling and Luoluo are both getting better. The tips of Wei 11's pure white hair seemed to be dancing as if she wanted to express her inner joy. It's nice to have a happy ending. Liu Yan also sighed with relief. Ever since Luo Luo lost her memory, she has been taking care of everyone for free. Ahaha. Luo Luo sat down in her seat, her smile still had a hint of shadow. It's really great. She looked at everyone talking and laughing at the table again, and finally decided to bury this matter in her heart. In order to prevent others from seeing her troubles, Luo Luo chose to be the original Luo Luo. That kind of thing, she didn't want to waste the time she spent with everyone and him thinking about it. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 224. During lunchtime, several people from Shimizuki Academy had already decided to return to the neutral area tomorrow. After leaving Shimizuki Academy for such a long time, I will definitely face all kinds of curiosities when I return. Aika has a headache just thinking about it. In fact, he had received many text messages about similar issues, but Aika chose to ignore them all. In the afternoon, Aika returned to her room to take a nap. The two most important things were finally solved, and my body lost strength as soon as I relaxed. Bathed in the afternoon sunlight shining through the window on the table, Aika lay lazily on the desk and took a nap. Intermittent knocking on the door urged him to wake up from his light sleep. Aika, are you there? Ling's voice came from outside the door, and Aika stood up and opened the door for her. Doing what? Over Aika's shoulder, she looked into the house. Sleep. No wonder I've been knocking on the door for so long and there's no response. Have you been waiting for a long time? It's been about 10 minutes or so. Sorry, I was just too tired, so I just closed my eyes for a while. Aika stepped away from the door and opened it. Aren't you coming in? If Ling hadn't come to him because of something unspeakable, Ling wouldn't have hesitated to walk into the room, so Aika guessed that she might have something to say to herself that she couldn't talk about. She had already thanked everyone when she was downstairs. There was no reason for her to thank her, because boys would have all kinds of inconveniences when taking care of her, so Luo Luo and Wei 11 had to worry about it. However, Aika accepted her thanks. After being reminded by Aika, Ling noticed that it was very unnatural for him to be standing at the door. Aika didn't have the habit of locking the door, not in the caretaker's cabin but here as well. You just woke up, haven't you gotten used to it yet? Seeing Ling looking around as if he had come to this room for the first time, Aika made a joke. No, I've been here once before. She turned around briskly, looked at Aika, and put her hands behind her back. Well, I have something to ask you. Well, as long as it's not some weird questions. Ling likes to get into trouble with what Aika said, so sometimes Aika doesn't know how to answer her questions. Strange question. It's nothing, just go on. If you encounter this kind of problem, just stay silent. After spending so much time with Ling, he has learned how to avoid dangerous topics. Ling's fingers intertwined behind her back. Of course, from Aika's point of view, she didn't know. When I was injured, you seemed to have very dangerous thoughts, didn't you? Huh? You mean? This is just a random guess on my part. Seeing Aika's confused eyes, Ling hurriedly waved her hands back and forth in front of her chest. I heard from Xiaoan that your expression was very scary at that time. Could it be that you wanted to avenge me? Something like that. Ling secretly looked at Aika from the corner of her eye. She probably didn't want to ask Aika such a thing face to face, but she just wouldn't know if she didn't ask, and she just wanted to know. It's not that Aika has forgotten the emotions he felt at that time, it's just that he couldn't confess them in front of him. I was just a little angry. I thought about things like revenge, but after calming down, I just thought that you wouldn't want me to do such a thing for you. Because she was the one who asked Ling to give up revenge, Aika didn't want Ling to know that she was not qualified to preach to her. Of course I wouldn't want that kind of thing. But, have you really ever had such an idea? Ling's face turned red, but she immediately shook her head and looked at Aika again. Aika, I don't want to keep beating around the bush, so I'll talk to you here. Isn't it a strange thing? Being looked at by Ling with such serious eyes, Aika had a very bad feeling in her heart. No, I will ask you this question sooner or later, so it doesn't matter a little earlier. Just tell me. I don't know if the her that Ling just mentioned was a slip of the tongue. Aika didn't think about it for the time being. It probably refers to someone around her. In other words, Ling was not the only one in front of him who wanted to answer this question. Aika couldn't think of what was so important. This statement is not entirely accurate. In fact, he had already noticed it, but he hoped that such questions would not arise for the time being, because he simply could not answer them. Especially when the two of them are alone. Date with me. Ling folded her slender fingers on her chest, clearly expressing her deepest hope. Aika's entire brain stopped thinking. So is this what "don't want to beat around the bush" means? Such direct words are more difficult to deal with than the questions waiting to be answered. He had no idea that Ling would make such a request of him, thinking that Ling was just here to ask whether his mood had changed or something like that. Aika couldn't tell for a while whether Ling was joking or because I was serious. Her eyes didn't waver at all. This small space became silent. Aika could even hear the sound of her heart beating rapidly, and Ling must have been the same. Ling, you are. Don't change the subject. Answer me now. Ling interrupted Aika's words to stall for time, took a step forward, and forced Aika to the door. Aika has no way to escape, Ling is right in front of him, and the only answers he can give are good and bad. Ling stared into Aika's eyes without flinching. Her cheeks had turned red and her legs were trembling, but Aika could not escape from her. 1 second seems like a long day. I don't know how much time passed, but the two of them stayed in this posture and looked at each other. Finally, Ling withdrew her leaning body and smiled, but that smile was undoubtedly tainted with shadows. If I say this, how are you going to reply to me? If I don't give you time to think, will you reply to me now? This was the result she expected. Aika would not give a reply. This indecisive boy could not give a reply on the spot. I went a little too far. I'm probably not qualified as a family member. No. That. Aika desperately searched for words. He knew that his attitude just now not only embarrassed himself, but also embarrassed Ling, who asked for a relationship. But there was no way to answer the question, and his attitude was clearly rejecting Ling. Do you like Logo Logo? I have no idea. Is my feeling for Logo Logo similar to that of Ling, who wants to be someone I can date and have a relationship with? Aika was really confused at this moment. He wants to be with Logo Logo all the time, he wants to be with Ling all the time, he wants to be with Wei 11 all the time, he wants to be with everyone all the time. He wants to fix the current time and stay at the moment when everyone is together forever. Putting this idea together in front of him, then his feelings for everyone are the same like. Really, I'm sorry, my question is indeed a bit excessive. Ling knew Aika's attitude towards this kind of question from his expression, but I still want to say it for her, you are such a scumbag. Aika couldn't refute that maybe he was indeed a scumbag for having such extravagant desires. Ling must have told this fact on behalf of Luoluo. Because Luoluo would not say such words to herself, Ling said it on her behalf, and this was also Ling's own voice. I'm a little disappointed, but the dating was originally proposed as a joke, so it didn't have a big impact. Although the result can't be said to be good, it can't be said to be bad either. She was lying to herself. Aika didn't think that the serious look in her eyes could be faked with a joking attitude. But in fact, he was the one who let her down, so he was unable to expose Ling's lies, and on this basis, he was punished even more. Forget about this problem now. For me, it's a little too impatient. Ling walked past Aika with brisk steps and put her hand on the doorknob. Before dinner, I have to forget all about my coming here, remember? She didn't wait for Aika's answer, turned around and closed the door, leaving him alone. At dinner time, the atmosphere at the table has changed a lot compared to the previous few days. The scene of everyone gathering here must feel like it happened a long time ago. Sure enough, Ling didn't mention what happened in Aika's room in the afternoon at all, and treated him as usual. Aika also rethought the unanswered questions while staying alone in the room. As for the conclusion, he still couldn't think of a suitable answer in the end, so he simply forgot the matter according to Ling's request. If you answer, someone else will get hurt. There is no best of both worlds approach, that's just the reality. On the last night of staying at Liu Yin's mansion, Liu Yin tried to take the ownership of Wuxi from Kokina's hands, which eventually led to the three of them sleeping together. Ling couldn't stand Luoluo's stubbornness and agreed to spend the night in her room. Shunben wanted to take advantage of the atmosphere to discuss something with Aika, but before that, Aika locked the door of his room. Except for some emotional problems, all other problems have been solved, and Aika leaned back on the chair with relief. After returning to Shimizuki Academy, life can get back on track. Aika hopes to maintain the status quo without incident until she graduates. It would be nice if I could have a dream like this tonight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 225. Luoluo obeyed Ling's words obediently and used the bathroom before her. The water temperature was just right, and Luoluo soaked everything from his shoulders down into the water. The suitable temperature makes people drowsy, and Luoluo almost fell asleep while soaking in the bathtub. If he didn't go out for too long, he might worry Ling, who was waiting, so Luoluo only spent half the time in the bath. Walking through the hall, the lively atmosphere an hour ago had gradually cooled down, and a touch of melancholy filled her heart. Knocked on Ling's door, but got no response. The doorknob of the room could be turned, but the door was not locked. Luoluo whispered "Excuse me" and opened the door without permission, but there was no Ling in the room. Are you waiting in your room? Luoluo exited Ling's room in confusion, passed by Aika's room, and returned to his own room. But Ling was still not found. The only place where she might be was Aika and Wei 11's room. If something happened, it would be bad to disturb them. Luoluo walked into his room without locking the door. She decided to blow dry her long wet hair while waiting for Ling to finish her work. Sitting at the table, Luoluo recalled the scene when she pestered Aika to comb her hair when she lost her memory, and her face suddenly turned red. Thinking about it this way, it's been a long time since I've been coquettish with Aika like that, and now I feel very shy when I think about it. This is probably a negative effect of growing older, so Luoluo doesn't want to grow up. She wants to go back to the time when she can act coquettishly to Aika without feeling shy. While having unrealistic fantasies, Luoluo picked up the comb and hair dryer on the dressing table. Only then did she notice a piece of paper pressed under the comb. Luoluo opened the twice-folded paper. There were several rows of handwritten fonts on it, which were familiar fonts to Luoluo. "Brother! Are you there?" Luoluo rushed into Aika's room in a hurry. She didn't knock on the door, and it was the first time Aika saw her looking so anxious. "Lola? What happened?" "Sorry, but please take a look at this first." Rather than apologizing for her rudeness, she had more important things to tell Aika now. Aika took the paper handed over by Luoluo doubtfully. It was just an ordinary piece of letter paper that could be seen everywhere. "Luoluo, I'm sorry, I can't fulfill my promise tonight. If I put forward my idea in front of you, it will definitely be rejected on the spot, so I can only convey it in this way. Don't worry, I'm not setting out to do anything weird. When you read this letter, I will already be on my way to August. Now that you have restored your memory, you should know our current situation. If you want to realize Ika's wish and maintain the status quo, then this must be the best way. August needs the background and magic equipment of the Heinz family. If I use myself as a bargaining chip in the transaction, I will not only stop them from coming to trouble you, but I can even use my power to protect you. In addition, I know you will definitely show this letter to Ika, so the last sentence is for him. Ika saw the last words Ling left for herself. It doesn't matter what the answer is. Ika saw the end, and he desperately resisted the urge to crumple up the letter in his hand. Brother, do you want to go? Seeing Ika fold the letter and put it into his pocket with an ugly expression, and put on the coat hanging on the wall, she already knew what Ika would do. Well, we have to bring this arrogant fool back. Brother Ika. Wei 11 also happened to rush to Ika's room at this time. Great, Luoluo is here too, so what happened just now? Xiao 11, what's the matter? Well, someone just left here. Could it be Sister Ling? It can only be her. As expected, Liu Yin also came here with her. That guy ran away from home, I'm going to bring her back. I'm going with my brother too, please wait for me. Luoluo hurriedly turned back to her room, and Professor Kokina walked in instead of her. Do you know where she is? Have no idea. After being reminded by Professor Kokina, Ika realized that she only knew Ling's destination, but she didn't know which way she would take. At this time, all trains in the area have been suspended. August is not a place accessible to ordinary vehicles, so she can only walk. Wait a minute, go to Augustus at this time. Ika suddenly noticed the violation. Why should we go to Augustus at this time? Yes, if we need to go to Augustus, even we need to apply at least 2 days in advance, let alone ordinary people. Ling's situation cannot be said to be ordinary, but this is too strange. If the background of the Heinz family was used directly, the powerful people would be very happy to receive him even if he came in the early morning. Luoluo had changed clothes and returned to the room. Brother, I'm ready. You should know that I won't let you go. But I have already changed my clothes. That's because you had no intention of asking my permission. Luoluo, come along too. I'll drive the car out. Liu Yin made the decision for Ika without authorization, and turned around to walk out. Wait a minute, Liu Yin, are you ready to come too? I can't let my guests have problems during their stay. If I drive, can't I just go? Hearing the commotion in the corridor, Shinya understood the situation from the few words he heard. You stay here, Xiao 11 and Coconut are not allowed to go out. I want to go too. By the way, why are Xioxi and I being excluded? If we have an accident on the road, we will need your support then. Coconut, you should be able to guide us, right? Navigation should be no problem. Navigation. Liu Yin's words made Ika look at Professor Coconut. When she was working for the Imperial City Defense Bureau, she hacked the entire system there. There are surveillance cameras at regular intervals on both sides of the road. If Ling is still in the Imperial City now, it shouldn't be difficult to find them. Under such circumstances, Liu Yin still arranged everyone's work carefully and securely. Only then did Ika understand why Professor Coconut initially asked if she could find Ling's location. She had planned to use this method to provide support from the beginning. Thanks to this, my position is also in danger. Professor Coconut smiled bitterly. The Imperial City Defense Bureau probably didn't know that their system had been mastered by Professor Coconut, but capable people were easily suspected, so she just did it to the end. Everyone looked at Shun. He also had a certain status in the Imperial City Defense Bureau. It's not that I want to hide this matter from him, but I feel a little worried when such a sensitive topic is mentioned in front of him. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me? But he didn't seem to mind at all. Ah, It's the thing you just mentioned. You don't need to worry about system problems. Ruth, the director had already considered this possibility when he invited Professor Coconut. This is based on a commission sent based on the trust of the Holy See. If he said that, there should be no problem. When Lu Yin returned to the room to prepare, Shun rushed to the courtyard and drove the car out of the mansion. Luoluo was beside her, and her expression showed that she had no problem at all. Professor Coconut took the personal terminal to Aika's room and sat down in her seat. Wei 11 went to the empty rooftop in order to strengthen the barrier of the mansion. Liu Yin didn't take a long time to get ready. It seemed like she just changed out of her pajamas. Although she appeared calm on the surface, she must also be very anxious in her heart. Let's go, I hope this is the end. Although Liu Yin received a short-term leave from the Holy See, it seemed that she had never had a good rest in a real sense. Aika, who was accompanying her around, also felt the same way and looked at each other with a wry smile. Well. Luo pouted next to him, brother and Xiaoan have become very close. That's not the case. We just have a cooperative relationship. Liu Yin, who was unprepared, was suddenly called out by Luo, and he hurriedly explained inexplicably. Hey. Luo seemed to be just joking about Lu Yin. Seeing her panic, Luo laughed lightly. The tension before departure was swept away by the two girls, and even Aika unknowingly let go of her clenched hands. As long as they are by your side, no matter what kind of difficulty you have, you can definitely overcome it, and Aika is even more convinced of this. We must bring back all the lost children, Ling and her. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 226. Liu Yin's driving skills couldn't be said to be as skillful as Shun's, but as long as he sat in the driver's seat and held the steering wheel, Liu Yin wouldn't get carsick. Aika and Luoluo still clearly remember the first time Liu Yin got motion sick in front of everyone. Please forget what happened at that time. Liu Yin turned the steering wheel awkwardly. Although the car body was a little unstable, it was still within the safe driving range. The navigator was turned on next to the steering wheel, and the map of the imperial capital was displayed on it. Their car was displayed as a small red dot on the map. Found it, Professor Coconut's voice came from the loudspeaker. Although the image on the monitor is a bit blurry, Ling should be the only one still walking on the road at this time. Is the direction she's heading toward Augustus? It looks like she is. She is not very far away from you. You should be able to stop her in front of her. Professor Coconut didn't have time to adjust the car's navigation system, so he couldn't display Ling's position on the navigation device. He could only use communications to guide Liu Yin's direction. Oops, she seems to have found out. From Professor Coconut's perspective, Ling seemed to look back at the surveillance camera on the street, and then the figure suddenly disappeared from the current area. Professor Coconut, have you lost me? Wait a minute. Her voice disappeared for a while, and then sounded anxiously, you go in the direction of August 1st. It seemed that the search was not going well, and Ling might have hid somewhere where the surveillance cameras could not capture him. That guy's intuition is still so sharp. Aika always believed that most of her talents were used in unnecessary ways. Brother, do you have the heart of orchid? Yeah, take it. How do you know? Luoluo didn't remind herself, and Aika almost forgot that Luoluo's necklace was still in the pocket of her coat. After Aika took away the orchid heart without authorization, he kept it in the place where he could keep it most easily. I have a vague feeling that it is right next to me. Does the magic costume make you feel like this? Well, brother, can't you feel the presence of the fiery eyes? I don't think I've ever felt like this. Aika vaguely remembered that Ling seemed to have said that he could feel the light flame sword in his body. Is it because my magic power is very low that I can't feel the presence of the fiery eyes? She has left the city and is approaching the suburbs. There will be no surveillance cameras soon. You have to catch up before she leaves the surveillance range, otherwise you will lose her. How come it's so fast? Liuyan complained as he stepped on the accelerator. It takes at least more than an hour to walk from the city to the suburbs. On a deserted road at night, there was no limit to acceleration, and the bumps on the car's body became more and more serious. Ika could only pray that the car wouldn't break down midway. After Liuyan accelerated to the maximum speed that he could barely control, he drove out of the city along the main road in a few minutes. After you turn left, you are outside the surveillance range of the surveillance camera. Professor Coconut, thank you. Leave the rest to us. It would be nice if she was willing to help you. Nothing, then I hope you can bring Ling back. Professor Coconut confused herself by talking to herself, leaving her expectations for everyone before cutting off the communication. What did you mean by that sentence just now? Luoluo also heard Professor Coconut talking to herself. Don't worry about this kind of thing for now, look over there. The view of the suburbs was empty and it was a moonlit night, so they quickly found the lost child. Liuyan stepped on the accelerator and turned the steering wheel hard. The tires rubbed against the road and emitted a plume of smoke, blocking Ling's face laterally. Ling raised her head slightly, stopped, and watched everyone jump out of the car indifferently. Sister Ling, please don't go any further. Suddenly leaving a letter, asking everyone to mobilize all their troops to search for you on the streets. There should be a limit to your willfulness. Luoluo and Liuyan took action before Ika. I just chose the most beneficial solution to the current situation. No one will suffer. You took Ling away from us. Isn't this considered a loss? Brother, this kind of statement. Ling showed a look of surprise, but it was only for a moment. This is the future decided by me. Ika, you are not qualified to control me. Even family members don't have this kind of freedom. Even if this is really Ling's decision, I won't agree. Ika spoke righteously and said more willfully, yes, just like you said, people like me really deserve only scumbag, so I want to keep my family by my side and be with the people I like. Isn't it enough to have such a reason? Ika no longer avoided Ling's questions. He accepted all Ling's cynicism towards him. What's more, this is not Ling's decision. If your family is not qualified to decide Ling's future, then you are even less qualified. What are you talking about? Is there anything wrong with me deciding on my own? Her eyes and voice were obviously shaken, and Ika used this to further confirm her guess. Ling Ke would not do something stupid like sacrificing her life. If it were her, she would definitely use simpler and more crude methods to overcome adversity. You are talking too much. How could a method that even Ling herself would not agree with come from her mouth? Ika smiled contemptuously. Don't make decisions for her without permission, light flame sword. Ika said this not to Ling, but to her in Ling's body. Sister Ling, brother, what is going on? Ika did call the current Sister Ling the light flame sword, but how is this possible? Luo couldn't understand it. Really, so that's what happened. Liuyan understood faster. No wonder she suddenly changed the names she called me and Xiao 11, and she didn't use the honorific title for Coconut. When Ling woke up and greeted them at the entrance for the first time, Liuyan felt this sense of dissonance. Let her explain herself. Ling stared at Ika with resentment, and Ika stared at her closely. Sister Ling, please say something. Luoluo looked at Ika and Ling back and forth uneasily. Although she didn't know whether what Ika said was right or wrong, she hoped that both of them could be honest. When did you find out? In the end, it was Ling who gave up and admitted Ika's guess. When you wrote the letter, you only mentioned Luoluo and me, but Ling should also have something to say to other people. What about Wei 11 who lives together? Are you going to abandon her without saying anything? Ling can't will do this kind of thing. At that time, the she in your mouth meant Ling. I was careless about the details. Ling, it should be said that the light flame sword occupying Ling's body now, smiled bitterly. "Sister Ling, is it okay to still call you this?" Luoluo said cautiously. "You obviously left the letter a long time ago, why didn't you leave the mansion until we found out?" "It was just a whim, thinking about something in the courtyard." "You are not careless. These are the clues you deliberately left." Ika didn't know what kind of expression he should make. "If you had just left the city at the speed you had, you would have arrived at Augustus by now, right? You gave us enough time to catch up with you, just so we could stop you here." "I don't have such good intentions, it's just that her body has just woken up and has not adapted to strenuous exercise. Even if I strengthen her physical abilities, it will break down if she is overused." Just treat it like this. Ika had no intention of continuing to talk to her in circles. "Then, can you please return Ling's body now?" Of course this is impossible. The golden particles condensed into a nearly 2-meter long knife in her hand. This was not Ling's usual shape. "If you have the ability, take this body back." "Liuyan. I know, this is the only way." Ika summoned 6 floating cannons, and Liuyan held Bingning's spear. "Luoluo, stay away from here." Ika took out the necklace from her coat, put it into Luoluo's hand, pushed her back and urged her to leave. "Brother, Xiaoyan, there must be a better way." Luoluo still couldn't give up. She didn't want to see her family hurt each other. This should be spiritual magic. The only way to cut it off is to make the body lose consciousness. Liuyan whispered to Ika and Luoluo that she could only determine the approximate method, and she could not guarantee whether it would be successful. "I will try my best not to hurt Ling's body, just use Liuyan's method, don't worry." After Ika's persuasion, Luoluo compromised and ran to the car a little further away. After watching Luoluo leave, Ika could focus on Ling. "Sure enough, it's just like what I saw. You really care about Luoluo." "I don't deny it. Ling must be very unaccustomed to this way of holding a knife. This is the correct way for me to use it. I already told her during that game." That game probably refers to the maze exploration on the second day of the Moonflower Festival, which was also the time when Ling and Wei 11 acted alone. She raised her long sword, and magic circles appeared one after another on her sword, with red flames and golden light intertwining. Image. This was the first time Ika saw Ling using this fighting method. He was so shocked that he forgot for a moment that the person in front of him was not actually Ling. Ling didn't move his steps and slashed down on the spot. The flaming dragon formed a straight line and hit the two of them head on. Liuyan reacted in time and pushed Ika away, piercing the tip of the spear into the ground. The magic circle flashed in front of the two of them, forming a huge ice shield. The flaming dragon hit the ice shield with unstoppable momentum, splitting into two forces to the left and right. Ice should not have an advantage in the face of fire, but when Liuyan's ice faced basic fire magic, this level of heat could not melt it. "Stop being in a daze." Liuyan maintained the ice shield while scolding Ika. Ling's attack stopped, and she should have discovered that this flame alone could not destroy Liuyan's defense. Liuyan took advantage of this gap to remove the ice shield and rushed in front of her, his spear and knife colliding together. Ling once had a head-on conflict with Liuyan using 2 small swords. At that time, she was still at a disadvantage, but this time she really blocked Liuyan's attack. Of course, this kind of contact is just like saying hello. Liuyan used his spear to collide with Ling's flame-wrapped sword again and again. His body, which was not good at using the sword, could only slowly retreat under the fierce attack, until Ling noticed that he had no way out. Before she noticed, a huge ice wall had been erected behind her. She used the blade to twist Liuyan's spear tip, and the blade of the light flame sword suddenly shattered into golden particles. Taking advantage of Liuyan's unstable balance, Ling distanced herself from her. "Liuyan, those golden particles are all blades. So complicated." Liuyan immediately adjusted her balance. She waved her hand and the entire tall ice wall shattered. Sharp ice crystals smaller than the golden particles became the mist that protected Liu Yin. How to avoid hurting Ling's body and make her lose consciousness? The final answer Ika got was to make her faint from the pain. While Liu Yin and Ling were fighting, Ika quickly approached Ling from the other side. She must not have been able to deal with it immediately after escaping from Liu Yin's offensive. But he thought wrongly. Since it was the light flame sword that was fighting, her fighting method would make it easier for her to bring out the full power of the magic suit than Ling's. Using part of the golden particles transformed from the blade to hold back Liu Yin's steps, Ling still had a small sword left in his hand. It was impossible to directly attack Ling's body with the laser of the floating cannon, so Ika chose to use it to block Ling's approach. The floating cannon adjusted its attack direction according to the line of sight, forcing Ling to dodge. After transforming the magic power at the muzzles of the twin guns into the shape of a dagger, Ika resorted to close combat. Facing Ling, who only has one knife, he is confident that he is in an advantageous position. Sure enough, in order to repel Ika, Ling chose to give up her control of Liu Yin. She used the long knife to block Ika's attack again, and at the same time, the shape of the magic circle on the blade changed. The black swamp formed by magic spread over a wide area, and Ika suddenly felt that the solid touch under his feet became sticky, as if he were stepping on mud. A moment's delay in his body would change the situation of the battle. From the beginning, Ika noticed that the magic used by Ling was only the basic magic taught in the first grade, but the effect of the magic had far exceeded the scope of basic magic. When the black marsh spread to Liu Yin's feet, it encountered resistance. Her feet were covered with ice, and even the black marsh itself was covered under the ice. Liu Yin's ice can freeze even invisible objects. This is the highest level of ice magic sublimation ability. Tisk. Giving up on containing Liu Yin was her biggest failure, but a smile of ease appeared on her face. Is that the only extent? Of course not. Close combat was not Ika's specialty. After escaping from the black swamp, he gave up getting too close to Ling. A ribbon of light woven with silver-white magic power shot out from the muzzle and wrapped around the blade of the light flame sword. Ika was about to take the weapon away from her hand. But the shape of the magic circle changed again. Bai Yao's light blade cut off the silver light belt, and 6 beams of light were shot out from Ling's side at the same time, shooting at each other with Ika's floating cannon. This is completely divorced from the ability of basic light magic. Ika, don't keep spending time with her. The magic power of the magic costume is very great. I know. It's not that Ika and she are engaged in a war of attrition, but because he can't escape Ling's attack. While using light magic to suppress Ika's attack methods, she swung her blade towards Liu Yin, and the thick pillar of flame temporarily delayed Liu Yin's footsteps. Use 2 elemental magics at the same time. Liu Yin hurriedly constructed a defense and was forced to stop. Even if Ika and Liu Yin attack Ling at the same time, although they are not at a disadvantage, they still cannot achieve their ultimate goal. How can it be so troublesome to use the magic equipment itself as an opponent? Liu Yin gave up the direct contact with Ling. Since Ling wouldn't let him get close, he could just attack from a distance. The temperature of the surrounding air dropped sharply, and the spring air was filled with moisture, which became Liu Yin's weapon. Liu Yin's attack methods are not limited to weapons. A huge ice fist rose from the ground and hit where Ling was standing, and her Ika and Liu Yin attacks stopped. Ling, who drew his sword to dodge, could not easily regain his body balance. Ika, who escaped from the scorching light pursuit, did not give up this opportunity. The silver birdcage fell from Ling's head, imprisoning her inside. Humph, do you think something like this can stop me? It's not just him. Liu Yin threw a spear, and the tip of the spear pierced the ground some distance away from the birdcage. Centered on the spear tip, the ground was covered with ice. Following the ice's gaze, when it touched the edge of the birdcage, the fence made of magic was frozen by Liu Yin's ice. The Ling flame alone cannot escape from the frozen birdcage. Do you want to do this? She closed her eyes, and the flames on the blade dissipated, leaving behind a golden stream of light that slowly flowed through the delicate lines. If the blade of the knife is too high, hold the handle of the knife with both hands and pull it behind you. Ika, she is going to cut it directly with the knife. I know I won't let her do that. Countless light strips stretch out from the frozen fence and go around Ling's arms, body, and thighs. It is itself a birdcage built by Ika's magic power, and the magic power inside can also be controlled and shaped at will. Hey! Where are you touching? Ling's posture completely collapsed. The basic light magic that was used to cut off the light belts could not be used on her body. She could only try hard to break the light belts with brute force. But of course Ling's body does not have such great strength. The more he struggles, the tighter the light ribbons become. Always use this little trick. Sorry, this is the only way I can think of. Ika, who finally subdued Ling for the time being, breathed a sigh of relief. He and Liu Yin walked to the huge birdcage. Ling is like a veritable bird, restrained by light strips and locked in a birdcage, so that she should have no way to resist. The golden long knife also fell from her hand and landed at her feet, the tip of the knife deeply inserted into the ground. Can you give up now? Ika said softly, I don't want to hurt you anymore. I just don't want to hurt Ling's body. That is also a reason, but joining Augustus is not what you really want, right? Can't we talk about it? What's the answer? Ling suddenly asked back, and Ika was stunned. I didn't make up those words, they were all the child's thoughts. I just said them on her behalf. It was you who made Ling so miserable, so it might be easier for her to go to Augustus than to stay with you. I make Ling suffer. Ika chewed on the facts that came out of her mouth. He had made Ling feel pain. He had never thought of such a thing. That's right, so, ugh. Ling was about to continue saying something, but she suddenly moaned. What happens? Looking at Ling, who suddenly became uncomfortable, Ika became nervous again. Symptoms that look very similar to the backlash of magic power. Liu Yin took a step back warily. Why? Isn't the light flame sword Ling's magic weapon? She woke up. Ling's expression was definitely not relaxed. It seems I went too far, she is rejecting me. Ling doesn't agree with what you say. Ika's heart seemed to be redeemed. He once thought about whether Ling ever hated him. The more he thought about it, the farther away he became from Ling. I don't know, she was obviously in so much pain. The birdcage is filled with Ling's magic power, to be precise, the magic power of the light flame sword. Run away. Ika, she must be made unconscious now, otherwise it will become very troublesome. Even if you say so. The birdcage finally couldn't bear the torrent of magic power that spewed out. This happened in just a few seconds. Ling was liberated from the birdcage, but now there is no human consciousness in her body. Due to the influence of the magic power of the light flame sword, the sky was filled with golden aurora, but no one cared to appreciate this beautiful scenery. Oh no! As soon as Liu Yin finished speaking, a strong wind of golden particles rolled up from the ground. The golden particles scattered all over the sky were dozens of times larger than what Ling could usually control. The golden particles, counted in the thousands, are like countless petals flying in the air. If you get involved, there won't even be any scum left. Ika murmured and looked at the expanding wind mass. No human being could be cut by hundreds or thousands of blades and survive intact. Can I stop it just by getting close to her? Ika finally confirmed to Liu Yin. The current situation was urgent. Ling fell to the ground in pain, and the strong wind whipped up by the golden particles swept towards the direction of Ika and the others with fatal danger. The slightest mistake can lead to irreversible consequences. I can't guarantee that she will lose consciousness without any harm, but in this case, If nothing is done, everyone is at risk. Ika could only apologize to Ling in his heart. There might be a better way to solve the problem, but there was too little time left for him to think. But, Liu Yin's hand holding the spear was trembling. No. I can't do it. She shook her head desperately, her long silver hair swaying from side to side, and she screamed hysterically. Although under such strong wind, her voice seemed so weak. I can't do it, I don't want anyone to get hurt. As if the strength he once had was just an act, Liu Yin's legs finally couldn't support him anymore and he knelt on the ground. In her mission so far, she had never had to make such determination, and she could easily subdue the enemies she targeted. When it really hurt someone, Liu Yin took off his disguise. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 227. Brother, Xiaoan. Luoluo, who used the car as a cover, kept watching the fight between the three. Now, Liu Yin was kneeling on the ground, and Ika was helpless. The strong wind stirred up by the golden particles could feel its pressure even hundreds of meters away. All Luoluo can do is simple healing magic. Her magic wouldn't have much effect on the damage she suffered in this kind of battle. Ika and Liu Yin are both working hard for Ling. They followed here on their own initiative, but they can only get in the way here. Even though they promised that they would never blame themselves for this kind of thing again, they were unwilling and helpless deep in their hearts. Erase. Is there nothing you can do? Can we only hide behind Ika forever and regard his existence as a safe haven? She closed her eyes tightly and held the orchid heart hanging around her neck in her chest. After recovering his memory, Luoluo clearly remembered that he did use the ability of mechanical alchemy. But that kind of power will only hurt Sister Ling, and that kind of ability cannot be used on family members. You can't rely on Ika's ability, there must be something you can do. Luoluo prayed in his heart that if the light flame sword had its own consciousness, then Orchid Heart might do the same. Only this time, she didn't expect to rely on anyone, she just prayed to her magic costume. Lolo, I'm sorry. In Luoluo's endless prayers, a childish apology came into her heart. She opened her eyes suddenly and realized that she was already in an aqua blue space. Here it is. She blinked her eyes and looked at this unfamiliar space. Although it was my first time here, surprisingly, I didn't feel any panic inside. Luoluo, I just didn't want Luoluo's heart to be hurt, so I sealed Luoluo's memory. Are you Orchid Heart? Luoluo stood up. There was only endless blue water around him, and only the sound rang in his heart. Yes. Please tell me, what should I do to save Sister Ling? The light flame sword is also a magic weapon. You must have a method, right? Luoluo looked around anxiously for the source of the sound. She felt for no reason that Orchid Heart could give her the answer. There is power in Luoluo's words, please believe in yourself. The aqua blue space disappeared like an ebbing tide, and the scenery around Lolo returned to the wilderness of the suburbs. The aqua blue gemstone necklace held in her hand exudes warmth. Liu Yin, cheer up. I alone can't stop this raging wind. Even if Ling is slightly injured, Luoluo will heal her immediately. No one will blame you. On the contrary, you saved everyone. But, what can't be done just can't be done. Liu Yin didn't cry, but her trembling body couldn't meet Ika's expectations. If you think you can't do something, then try to do it. You can definitely do it. You can definitely do it to stop me from doing that kind of thing. Please believe me. If you fail, then you can do it. It's all my responsibility for instigating you and has nothing to do with you. If it fails, it won't be as simple as you said. If Linju is in a coma like before, and has amnesia like Luoluo, it's not a problem that can be solved by taking responsibility. It's just to avoid that irreversible ending that we need to work hard, right? The hypothetical future is not for escaping, but for changing. Ika pressed hard on her shoulders, causing her to feel pain and unable to think about fear anymore. Brother! Xiaoyan! Lolo, Lulu's voice was suddenly heard, and Ika realized that she was running towards the side. Go back immediately. Don't come close to here. Brother, Xiaoyan, please listen to me. Regardless of Ika's stop, Lulu had already ran to the two of them. The golden gust of wind suddenly separated into a tornado, accelerated suddenly, and rolled towards the sudden appearance of Lulu with unstoppable momentum. Mechanical alchemy. The muzzle of the gun is pointed directly between the path of Lolo and the tornado. Lolo must be protected from the hands of death. What I have failed to do before, I must not fail this time. Absolute royal power. At the same time, Lulu faced Ling's direction and sent words that she could not refuse into her heart. Sister Ling, Guanyan's sword, please stop. The silver torrent of magic shot out from the muzzle, collided with the golden tornado that hit Lulu, and was destroyed. Protecting Ling, the momentum of the wind and waves swirling around her weakened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Liuyan gritted her teeth. She didn't want to give up this rare opportunity. And she couldn't forget what Ika said. Stop being bound by the future and change the future yourself. The silver-white spear tip rolled up a blizzard, and two huge forces of magic collided. This is not enough. All the moisture in the air turns into ice crystals, mixed into the strong wind of golden particles, and rotates in the opposite direction. The reverse friction between molecules causes violent discharge phenomena. Liuyan finally broke through Ling's defense under the protection of the blizzard and came to her side. The electric light flashed, and the explosion caused by the overloaded energy rolled up the flames of destruction. The scope of the explosion spread all the way to the feet of Ika and Lulu, and all the ground within the range became fragmented. Liuyan. Sister Ling. Those two people were at the center of the explosion. Although Ika did encourage Liuyan to take action, he didn't expect her to be so messy. It wasn't until the dust and smoke dissipated and they saw the huge ice coffin lying in the center of the ring-shaped sunken ground that Ika and Lulu relaxed and sat on the ground with their legs paralyzed. At this time, Ika's PDA connected to the communication from an unknown source without any warning. You should leave here immediately. The Imperial City Defense Bureau has discovered the magic burst caused by you. The PDA placed in the pocket of the uniform came with an old-fashioned tone, and the person facing him could not be someone Ika knew. Brother, who is that? The tired Lulu still didn't forget to question Ika with squinted eyes. How could I know? Ika took out the PDA from her uniform pocket. The PDA's screen did not light up, and when the screen was turned on, it was just the normal main interface, but a female voice did come from the speaker. Coconut asked my concubine to help. The surveillance video captured on your way here has all been replaced. The Imperial City Defense Bureau will arrive at the scene in 10 minutes, and it will be very difficult for you to leave by then. Only then did Ika remember that Professor Coconut had indeed mentioned that someone might come to help. He didn't immediately doubt whether the unidentified female voice was worthy of belief, because there were so many things he wanted to know the answer to, and he didn't have the energy to think about them one by one. Only 10 minutes. That's right, you don't have time to hesitate. Lulu, I'm going to check on Liuyan and Ling. The huge ice coffin had completed its mission and dissipated in place. Ling lost consciousness again as expected. Liuyan looked a little dazed, but still conscious. Although she was a little sorry for Liuyan, Ika still shook her shoulders vigorously to wake her up and explain the current situation to her. Liuyan was just a little tired, but his body was not injured. Ika carried Ling, who fainted, back into the car and let her lie down in the back seat, while Lulu began to treat her. Just as the strange female voice said, Coconut is already waiting. The ride back to the mansion was uneventful. The route they took happened to be opposite to the starting route of the Imperial City Defense Bureau. Was it just a coincidence? Despite such doubts, The unidentified female voice did not ring again along the way. Ika temporarily gave up on confirming the source of the sound with Professor Coconut. When he returned to the mansion, he was woken up by Lu Yin from the passenger seat. He didn't notice at all when he fell asleep. "If you have any questions, I'll ask you after I wake up. I'll go back and rest today." As soon as he got off the car, Shun rushed everyone back to the room without any explanation. "In 2 hours, Dawn will come. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 228. Ika vaguely heard slight voices outside the door. As if they were discussing whether or not to come in, the girls living in the administrator's cabin were hesitant. Ika didn't continue to pay attention to the intermittent sounds coming from outside the door. He rubbed his head, which was still a little groggy after just waking up, and moved from the table to the window. He slowly stretched out his hand to open the curtains and pushed open the window to let the fresh air from outside flow into the small room. The wind blew several sheets of paper with dense formulas on the desk to the ground. Ika took a deep breath, and the morning wind mixed with the smell of green grass made her chaotic brain a little clearer. He bent down to pick up the materials on the floor that he had spent a whole night organizing, and put them away in the desk drawer. The rustling voices outside the door have disappeared, replaced by the subtle sound of metal friction. Are these guys just going to unlock the door when they find it is locked? Ika was muttering to herself as she put on the uniform hanging in the closet, walked to the door, and knocked lightly on the inside. That way they should know they're awake and what they're going to do. If you open the door rashly without saying hello, no one will know whether what greets you on the other side of the door is a long red gold knife sharpened like iron, or a hug from a younger sister, or whether you are scared and hesitant for such a small move. White-haired girl. These are things that Ika avoids, so the compromise approach that reminds them is the safest. The sound of subtle metal friction disappeared the moment Ika knocked on the door, and then he immediately turned the handle casually. "Ah, brother, it turns out you have woken up." "Ugh, brother Ika, I'm sorry, I didn't want to go in without permission." Ika chuckled lightly, pretending not to notice Way 11's evasive eyes, and gently put her hand on her head. "There's no need to apologize. If anything happens, you can come over anytime." "Is this so? That's great." Way 11 enjoyed the caress of Ika's big hand and closed her eyes with peace of mind. The tips of her pure white hair beat slightly according to her mood. "Ling, you must be the first one to open the lock, right? The method of unlocking is the same as what I told you a few days ago." "Who told you to suddenly lock the door today? You usually never lock the door." "We were just worried that you would oversleep and be late, so we had no choice but to come in and take a look." Ling, who was about to sneak away, confidently strode towards Ika, making it seem like the really guilty person should be Ika. "I probably didn't lock the door, anyway, I can't remember clearly. I went to bed too late last night, and I feel like I've forgotten most of the things I remembered in my head. It seems that this kind of attack is not very effective. You should also pay more attention to your body." Seeing Ika's face like this, Ling couldn't bear to continue making irresponsible remarks to him. "Come down quickly. Today's breakfast will be served while you are sleeping soundly. It's ready. Sister Ling, wait for me." Way 11 followed Ling back to the first floor. The two of them had to prepare tableware for 4 people. Luoluo still stayed beside Ika, standing there without moving. "Luoluo, why don't you come with us? I have something I want to tell you, brother." "Yeah, I'm listening. Even if brother didn't tell me, we still know that you must have stayed up late last night. Brother should have promised me that he would pay attention to his health, right? That is. The eyes are so red, we have noticed it a long time ago." Luoluo hugged Ika's waist from the front. It was so natural, physical contact between family members. Aika could only stand there, quietly listening to Lulu's teachings. I don't want to see you like this, brother. Lolo, I just want to get your memory back earlier. Tutor Tara is already fully assisting us. We only need to combine Tutor Tara's spiritual magic with Professor Kokina's magical machinery. You should be able to find a way to help you recover. There is no need, Lulu very calmly interrupted Aika's helpless words. Seeing you like this, brother, will only make me feel more uncomfortable. If the nerves are too tight, no matter how strong you are, people can also collapse. Aika did not respond to this sentence because he did not know how to respond to Lulu's mood. He firmly believed in this approach in his heart, but Lulu's teaching made Aika unable to refute it at all. Well. Aika took a deep breath and cheered up. I understand, I will just listen to you. Then he took the initiative to leave Lulu's warm embrace. If it doesn't end, it won't move forward. That's why people will survive by forgetting many things. I very much agree with this sentence. But memories are also proof that they once existed. So no matter what it costs me. During the time of being gently taught by Lulu, Aika thought a lot at this moment. It is his responsibility to respond to Lulu's mood, and it is his determination to retrieve Lulu's memory. That day, they were attacked by an unknown giant magical machine in the underground space, and Lolo lost his memory afterwards. In the time that followed, Aika found an opportunity to tell Lolo the truth about his amnesia. Although the relationship between the two has become clear, for Lulu, the memories between her and her family only stay in Aika's statement, just listening to Aika tell a story without any real sense. When they entered the teaching building, there were no other students lingering outside the classroom in the entire corridor. This just proves the fact that several of them are late again. Aika gently pushed open the back door of the twin classroom. It is an unwritten rule that students who are late must enter the classroom through the back door, so as not to interrupt the instructor's teaching. Those 4 problem children in the back, just stand there and don't move. But unexpectedly, the always tolerant and generous teacher Letica stopped Aika and the others who had sneaked in today, and the eyes of the whole class were also focused on the 4 problem children who were nearly half an hour late. Because I already knew this would happen, I was neither surprised nor angry. But Aika-san, can you tell me why the other members of your family are also late with you? Instructor Letica's eyes were firmly locked on the leading boy. Please wait a moment, Teacher Letica. Lulu suddenly explained for Aika, it was because my brother did something to me this morning that it took so much time. The classroom fell silent for an instant. Aika felt countless glares as sharp as blades, and it seemed that it would be better for him to explain the question asked by Teacher Letica. Ling and Wei 11 quickly helped Lulu smooth things over. They both knew that what Lulu said was not the kind of thing that his classmates would associate with it, but to Aika's ears, it just became darker and darker. Classmate Aika, the purpose of arranging for you to live together is not to give you more time for intimate communication. You can't do this without punishment. Perhaps Instructor Letica didn't understand what they really wanted to express, since if you are all responsible, I will arrange for you to clean the practice area after the practical classes this week. Please remember, it is a whole week. Teacher Letica's smile held a heavy pressure that could not be defended. The setting sun shines through the transparent roof into the practice area after the practical classes. Aika, why are you in such a bad state today? This place has become a mess, but at this time, the 4 of us have to clean it. In today's practical class, Aika didn't show his original strength at all. The magical machine constructed by mechanical alchemy went berserk with magic power, destroying nearly half of the practice field protected by the barrier. Ha ha ha, I'm so sorry. Maybe today is the worst day I've ever had, the worst luck. All the unfortunate things happened together. Aika holds a water hose in both hands and sprays water on the floor of the practice area. Although the practice ground has been damaged to the point of needing to be rebuilt, they need to get it into a condition that can be used before the rebuilding work can begin. I also feel that my brother was a little absent-minded at that time. Should I ask teacher Letica for leave to rest at home these 2 days? No, absent-mindedness is simply not paying attention. Just pay more attention in the future. Ika declined Luoluo's kindness. He knew that Luoluo was just taking the opportunity to find an excuse to urge himself to rest, but Ika felt that there was really no such leisure time now. As long as Luoluo's memory is not restored, the four of them seemed to be missing the most important piece of the puzzle. Everyone just kept silent about this matter and maintained their lives as if they had not changed. But in fact, Luoluo cannot get along with everyone in the name of family now. Because a protective barrier was deployed across the entire training ground during the practical lessons, it was not completely devastated by Ika. It's just that the practice area is very large, and it really takes a whole week to clean it up. Now that it has become like this, teacher Letica, who originally just wanted to punish Ika and the others, should lend a helping hand. That's it for today. You guys go home first. I have to go to Tutor Tara's place and won't be back until later. You're not going to stay there all night again, are you? Ling put down the tools in his hands, and walked towards the maintenance room of the practice ground with Luoluo, their backs turned to Ika. The tools they use must eventually be put back into their original places. I don't know if there is any new progress from Tutor Tara. If there is, I should be staying in her research room tonight. Luoluo told you in the morning, right? What I want to say is the same thing. You should pay more attention to yourself. Ling had already stopped when Ika answered her. She didn't look back, but there was a hint of helplessness and blame in her tone. Thank you, Ling, Ika responded to Ling's simple consolation with the same optimistic tone as before. It will definitely be better to do something than to do nothing. At least if you do something, you can still be self-satisfied. For a moment, if you don't do anything, you won't even be able to satisfy yourself. Although I don't quite understand, how should I put it? Since it's your decision, I won't say anything to extinguish your enthusiasm. But before that, I remind you to pay more attention to the mood of the people around you. Don't end up doing it for the pursuit of a perfect ending puts the cart before the horse. Speaking of this, Lingdon has already made his words clear. If you ignore their feelings now for your own purposes, even if Luoluo's memory is restored, it will leave the worst mark in their memory. Adding new scars in order to restore past memories is not something to be proud of. Ika didn't make a sound, just walked out of the practice ground with her back to them as if running away. Ika knew that her current stubbornness was the product of stubbornness. The regret in my heart surged like a rolling tide. Crying is not because you are weak, nor is smiling because you are strong. It's just because this is the only road left in front of him that Ika doesn't dare to leave this road. Brother Ika. Way 11. Ika stopped her anxious steps and quickly adjusted her emotions. Is the matter with Professor Kokina over? Well, Kokina said that what Brother Ika wants will be made right away. She asked me to tell you this. Way 11 showed a rare look of anticipation. Ika's wish can come true, which also affects her mood. In other words, Ika's wish is the common wish of the four people. Is Brother Ika going there again now? Well, Tutor Tara is still waiting for me. I'm sorry, Brother Ika, I don't know much about spiritual magic, so I can't help you much. It goes without saying, Way 11. You are already an indispensable help by my side. This was Ika's true words, and he believed that the gratitude in the sentence had been conveyed to Way 11. Way 11's expression indeed became cheerful because of these words. Brother Ika, I have something to say to Brother Ika. So, can you squat down a little bit? Although she didn't know what kind of secret Way 11 was planning to tell, Ika still listened to her words and knelt down. After doing so, his eyes happened to intersect with Way 11's. Then, I felt a gentle moist touch on the side of my cheek. Way 11. Aika hurriedly distanced herself, but because it was inconvenient to move while squatting, their eyes still intersected, and Aika could only look at the white-haired girl in front of her in a panic. Hee. Way 11 stepped back a little, her cheeks flushed. This is my first time doing this kind of thing outside. Her little head was buried lower, and her muttering voice could not hide her inner nervousness. I'm sorry, I can only do this kind of thing. If I do this, Brother Aika will be more energetic. Fortunately, it's been a long time since after school. No third-party passes here. Therefore, this space shrouded in the afterglow of the setting sun was completely left to Aika and Way 11. You're late for the evening classes too. When Aika arrived at Tutor Tara's research room, the sky had completely turned dark. Although Aika quickly rushed here after saying goodbye to Way 11, the time they spent together seemed to be too much. Although this is nominally Tutor Tara's mansion, there is no room inside that is used for daily life. The name Research Laboratory is indeed more suitable for the style here. Multiple screens were installed on the walls, and several long tables were assembled into a larger tabletop in the center of the room, which was filled with paper materials. There are also various bottles and jars on the wooden table next to the wall that are used for unknown purposes. Instructor Tara's research direction is spiritual magic, which has not yet formed a system. Looking at the mainland, there are still only a handful of researchers of this type of magic. Instructor Tara comes from the Kalu family, a family with a surname in the Bis Empire. She possesses a magic outfit that can jump the timeline, the founder of Omniscient, and is the authority on spiritual magic in Frost Moon Academy. Such multiple identities make her a core figure in helping Luoluo regain his memory. Forget it, I can more or less guess the reasons. They are still waiting for you to come home in the administrator's cabin, right? Sorry, I may not be able to stay here tonight. It's really unexpected that you took the initiative to make a completely opposite request from before. Have you suddenly become homesick? After all, we can't keep our family waiting forever. It's rare to hear you say something a little more mature. Teacher Tara smiled as if she understood something. In this case, we won't waste any more time. Let's start now. On the night after the incident, Aika had such a dream. That's one of countless possibilities. If Ling was not injured and unconscious before setting off, fate would lead them to another ending. Aika sat up from the bed, obviously feeling that this dream was very long, but now the time was still in the morning. He recalled the dream that gradually faded from his mind. Ling was not injured, but Luoluo's memory was not restored. Which ending is the best? Aika couldn't get an answer. There is no option to have the best of both worlds in the world. It is precisely because there are countless possibilities, and different people will be harmed in each possibility, that people will always live in contradictions. Aika looked at the time on the PDA and saw that she had only slept for 3 short hours. Ling's sword of light, Luoluo's absolute royal power, the voice warning him on the PDA, this is probably the reason why Aika can't sleep in the true sense. He raised his head, and as if in a dream, there was a slight voice outside the door. No need to distinguish carefully, Aika also knew that they would come here, and he had a vague premonition of this. Questions that needed to be clarified piled up in Aika's mind, forcing him to stop being restless. Don't keep thinking about painful things, because you can't forget them even if you want to. Time can dilute the pain, but Aika doesn't want to use time to heal everything. No matter what happens, don't stop. Keep moving forward no matter what. Keep going until the moment your life ends. With such determination, Aika opened the door for them. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 229. Hello everyone, I am Muse Hiking who doesn't know what I want to do recently. It took me 2 days to memorize the 50 syllables, but my plan to learn Japanese by myself was temporarily shelved due to various unexpected tasks. After getting to know hiragana and katakana, I was finally able to match the characters in the staff list with the voice actors one by one. I was really touched when I did it for the first time. How great would it be if you could recommend raw meat just by listening to it? I once had this naive idea, but I decided to insist on studying all the new standards by myself. Laughs. The seniors in the ACT band I joined 2 years ago were preparing to graduate and find jobs. Suddenly, I felt that time was passing quickly. I originally thought that the days when we would go our separate ways were quite far away for me. When I first entered school 2 years ago, I went to the piano room of the music department and happened to hear a familiar melody. I still remember it was Senbonzakura's ensemble. Senbonzakura is indeed a classic song. The first time I played Tentacle Monkey on the piano, I also chose Senbonzakura. In fact, I don't have much feeling for this style of song, but it has an inexplicable magical quality that can make people laugh. You keep listening, the brainwashing cycle. That's too far. In short, I, a medical student, somehow got involved with them. At that time, the bass girl asked me what instrument I could play. I was going to choose the electric guitar because it looked cool and I had also played classical guitar for 2 or 3 years. Later, I thought that I had never even practiced climbing grids, so I was trying to show off my strength by just starting, and I didn't have the perseverance to practice new skills hard in the limited time, so I became a keyboard player. Although it was my first time to use a synthesizer, it's pretty quick to get started with a piano background. The first song I played together with them was Kim no Chi no Monogatari, Hakumonogatari ed. Compared with the piano solo score of Tentacle Monkey, the keyboard part of the score is not particularly difficult, and you can already play it in an ensemble after a week. Now the band has broken up. There is nothing left except memories. No, I was so busy feeling sentimental about myself that I almost forgot that this is a postscript. Thus, the 6th volume is completed. When I was writing the outline, I kept telling myself get into the main line. Enter the main line. Enter the main line. Then after I finished drafting the outline, I looked back and saw that it seemed to have no connection with the main line, and then I fell into an infinite loop of revisions. In this way, the 6th volume of Endless Silver Machinery comes to an end. The following is a thank you. Painter Black Tea Teacher, the flowing sound is really great. Shouldn't we make a lily composition of Liuyan and Waxi next time? Just thinking about it makes me, sorry, I'll go to the rooftop to calm down first. Thank you, Mr. Cheese, for your hard work. In order to reduce your workload, I decided to carefully control the number of words in each volume to 100,000, so that there will no longer be 130,000 long articles. If you submit the manuscript in advance, you will not be urged to 33. Finally, I would like to thank everyone who has been reading this far, and I hope to see you in the next volume.